Good morning. Start out here this morning with a little bit of a quiz for you. We've been talking about steering and suspension, and you need to know what some of the parts are. So we're going to start out with just a little bit of identification test here. So as I point to a part and explain a little bit about it, you tell me what it is. We're going to start with this bar right across here. It comes all the way across the front, attaches over here with some bushings and everything to another part down here. It does the same thing over here. So it's a bar that's connecting the two parts here. So I want you to tell me what that part is. That's number one. Number two, I want you to tell me what this part is. Right here. It's connected to the steering knuckle. And it goes from here to this little sleeve right here. So I want to know what that part is. Okay. Number three, I want to know what this part is. It's attached to the other end of that sleeve and comes up here to a piece up here, which I want you to identify later. But this is number three, this part right here. Okay. Number four, I want to know what this big piece right here is. Okay. If you saw the video on replacing the lower ball joint, you got a much better picture of this piece. That's a hint, the lower ball joint is pressed into it. So give me an idea of what you think that piece right there is. Next, I want to know what you think this piece is. If the lighting's not very good, let me see if I can light it up for you a little better. Right here, this piece, you can see that it goes from down here and disappears up into the frame up in here. So I want to know what that piece is. Next, I want to know what that piece is that's inside of that piece. Looks like it's right back in there. It's got a shiny shaft up here at the top of it. Comes down here, looks like it connects to the lower part of this piece. So tell me what that piece is. Bolts in here, goes up through here, and it also attaches to the frame up top where you can't see at this point. Then I want you to come over here and I want to see if you can tell me what this piece hiding right behind here is. It's attached to the frame right up here, and it comes down and attaches to this same piece right here. And if you'll notice, those number 1, 2, and number 3 over there, there's also those parts over here on this side. So you don't need to identify these two, because if you can identify those two, then you can tell me what these two are. I'm not worried about that. But I do want to know what this piece right here is. It's a big piece right here that attaches to the frame. It's bolted to the frame good and solid. And if you look up here, there's a shaft that comes down from inside the truck and connects to the top of it under this plastic cover right here. Has a couple of hoses going to it. Look like they may be leaking a little bit of fluid. And so tell me what this piece is. Okay? And attached to that piece, we have another piece right here that looks similar to this piece over here on the other side, but it's attached to that big thing that's mounted to the frame, and it's also attached to this bar that comes across here that this piece and this piece are attached to, and it's also attached to the piece over here. So number 9 is, I want to know what this piece right here is. Okay, attaches to that and attaches to this. And last but not least, I want you to tell me what this piece is that comes across the front of the vehicle that all these are connected to. There's 4 things connected to this one piece right here. There's this piece, this piece, this piece, and this piece are all attached to that one piece. Okay? Now, if you can tell me what all of those are, then you've done a very good job on this quiz. The last thing I will ask for you to put on this quiz is what style or what type of steering system is this? We have multiple different types of steering systems in vehicles. I want to know what this one is called. So that's your bonus question for this quiz. That's number 11. Okay? So good luck with that. And on the next video, I'll be showing you how to replace some of these parts. Okay? Alright, steering and suspension. One of the things that really makes your car feel squirrely is if steering problems start happening, if parts start wearing out in the front end. We have a lot of different little ball and socket joints that can wear out over time. So I want you to look at a few things, and I'm going to identify the things that we talked about in the quiz and kind of show you how they work, and then I'm going to show you how to replace some of the parts. I've already started the job to make it go a little faster for the video, so just bear with me on all this. But this big contraption here that's mounted to the inside of the frame that we mentioned a while ago, that is your steering box, your steering gear box. This one has power steering, so it has hydraulic fluid being pumped through it by a pump that's belt driven. The fluid movement helps assist the ease of turning the steering wheel, basically. The shaft that goes up to the firewall and through is the steering shaft that comes from the steering wheel. This is our Pittman arm. The Pittman arm is what mounts to the steering gear. It has a very tight press fit here, and then it has a press fit through this center shaft here, which is called the center link. Okay, this center link has 0 wearable parts. It's a bar with 4 holes in it. That's all it is. But all these ball and socket joints and these joints on the idler arm and Pittman arm connect to this piece. That's what connects the left side of the vehicle to the right side of the vehicle, and allows the movement for the steering to work both wheels at the same time, simultaneously. So that's your Pittman arm. Center link, and then from the center link we have to have it supported on the right hand side of the vehicle, and so to do that we have the idler arm. It sets idle over here. It just holds the center link in place so that it can swivel back and forth with the steering mechanism. So the idler arm sits on this side. This joint tends to wear out. This joint up here tends to wear out on these. The joint here on the Pittman arm will tend to wear out. From the center link, then we have our link to each wheel, and that would include tie rod ends. Outer tie rod end, inner tie rod end. This is our adjustment sleeve. The tires need to point virtually straight ahead at the same direction all the time when you're going straight down the road. If these get out of adjustment, or if they start wearing, the tires are not going to be parallel down the road, so it's going to cause scrubbing and tire wear, really squirrely feeling steering. It's just going to allow a lot of unwanted movement up here and allow some really dangerous steering action. So when these joints on the ends wear out, you get a lot of slop in your steering. So what we're going to do today is replace all 3 of these pieces. Sometimes you only have to replace the outer tie rod ends. If that's the case, you don't end up replacing these sleeves and the inner tie rod ends, but this owner of this vehicle wants everything changed, so he has new tie rod ends and new sleeve. Now the thing is, if I just go in there and replace these, just throw the new parts on there, this thing is going to be way out of alignment. The toe for these tires is going to be way off, and we'll talk about toe later. But what I've done, I've already pre-measured, and I've set the new parts to as close to the same length as I can get them, so that hopefully it will not be too squirrely driving it from here to the alignment shop when we get done. So what I need to do is show you some of the tools that we use for this job. The nuts that hold everything on, there's just 18mm nuts on both ends, and then there are 19mm nuts holding the center link to our Pittman arm and the idler arm. And then we have what else do we have? I forgot. A larger, like a 1 3/16 nut that holds the Pittman arm to the steering box, and then like a 7/16 nut that holds the idler arm to its anchor on the frame here. I've loosened everything already, so I'm going to start taking some parts off. And if you'll notice, let me see if this is still the case. If the wheel's setting straight forward, this Pittman arm sets too close. I'm sorry, not Pittman arm. The center link sets too close to the cross member, and we can't get our tie rod end completely out of the center link. So what we have to do is turn the wheels one direction, get one side done, and then turn the wheels the other direction to get the other side done to provide enough clearance for everything. So I've already loosened everything, and if you'll notice another thing, these nuts are not castle nuts. Well, you know what castle nuts are. They're the nut with the little steeples on this around the top, where you can slide a cotter key through the end of the ball joint or tie rod end, and that keeps the nut locked on there so it can't back off. These are not castle nuts, but they are self-locking nuts. If you have enough light and can see, you see these little indentions inside of the nut. They're all the way around it. Those little indentions actually distort the threads just a little bit, so that when you put it on, they make the threads fit tight enough that they won't vibrate loose. They're called self-locking nuts. You might have learned that in intro class. There's other types of self-locking nuts that have a nylon ring at the top that lock them on, but these are made with the indentions on the side. So no cotter keys to worry about on the old parts, but we have the new parts with cotter keys, so we'll have to install all of those when we get them in place. So again, I've already loosened the nuts and used our pickle fork to jam in here and hammer and knock the joints loose. They're just like the ball joint we did the other day. The ends here are beveled, and they fit into a beveled hole, and when you tighten the nut down, it cinches them up in those holes. So there's the right side tie rod end set off. So we're going to grab our new set and throw them in there. Like I said, I've already measured the length of this one, and to explain the adjustment to you, this sleeve is a split sleeve. These clamps, you loosen the nuts and bolts on these clamps, and then that allows the sleeve to turn, and we have one tie rod end that has right-handed threads, we have another tie rod end that has left-handed threads, so when we turn the sleeve, it either lengthens or shortens this assembly. So that's how you make your tie rod or toe in adjustments, is by turning this sleeve. Now you can see a lot of dirt, a lot of grime, a lot of mess. I'm really glad that he got new sleeves with his new tie rod ends. That way we don't have to spend a lot of time cleaning this up and trying to make this work freely. The threads are really nasty and dirty and rusty, so we don't have to mess with all that. That's great. So let me grab the tie rod end set for that side. And there, yes, there is an outer and an inner. They're different for a couple of reasons. The lengths are pretty much the same, but I guess the main difference is the location of the grease zerk. If this was sticking straight out the back, that same issue would be a problem with this cross member. If it was sticking straight out the back, the grease zerk would be sticking right up against the cross member, and you wouldn't be able to put grease in it. So they've located the grease zerk on the end so that you can still get a grease gun in there and lubricate the joints once they're installed. So we have, as you can see, on the new replacement parts, we have castle nuts, and we have the hole for the cotter key to go through to lock the nuts in place. So we'll simply slide the new joint in, run the nut up. The new joints are nice and stiff. Going to make for some good, nice, tight steering. Notice our dust boots are in place so that we don't get water and dirt into the joint. That would make it wear out even faster. I'm going to use a wrench to tighten these up so that I can see my cotter key holes. And they're not the same size as the old nuts. Always throws you for a loop. You may ask me, is there torque specs for these? Probably. I use the German torque specs on these, and that's good and tight. I can see there just a tiny bit more where our cotter keyhole lines up. And I left the cotter key, excuse me, I left the cotter key, lay it on the toolbox. Put the cotter key through the hole. If your fingers are strong enough, you can bend the cotter key with your fingers. If not, you have to grab a pair of pliers or side cutters and just make sure the cotter key is bent over to where it can't slide back out of the hole. We'll do the inner. And there you have one side installed. Do the same thing on the other side. I'm not going to do that right now because we have to turn the steering wheel and get the linkage to the other side. What I am going to do is going to show you how to replace this idler arm. Same thing here, we have the nut that's already off. It's a self-locking nut like the tie rod ends. I've already used the pickle fork to knock it loose. And we are going to have to turn the wheel because with it turned all the way, our center link touches the cross member here and won't let it drop down to come off the idler. So we have that option, or we have this option. I may go ahead and just try this. This is a special puller made for Pittman arm and idler arm removal. It's just a clamp that wraps around the tool. The center bolt pushes against the shaft where the nut is, and as you tighten that on, it will press the idler arm off. Get it into place here. I did not try this earlier. It looks like this may barely fit. We are working through 300,000 miles worth of dirt and grime here, looks like. But it looks like it's going to fit. You can see our threads here. The bolt here will come up and push against the shaft. You see it centering itself. It came loose fairly easy. I guarantee the Pittman arm won't be that easy, but the idler arm, not too bad. Looks like I'm still going to have to do some turning of the steering wheel to get things to work here.